The tension in the boardroom was tight enough to snap. Serena, the company's Ice Queen CEO, slammed a thick file onto the mahogany table with a deafening bang. She pointed a manicured finger directly at Leo, her trembling driver who stood with his head bowed. "Leo, pack your things," she commanded, her voice cutting like glass. "You are fired immediately." Cruel laughter rippled through the room. The executive smirked, convinced the poor driver had made a terrible mistake while taking their drunken boss home last night. Leo swallowed hard, fighting back tears as he turned to leave. He was terrified of how he would pay his daughter's hospital bills now. But just as he reached the door, Serena spoke a single sentence that froze the entire room and changed his destiny forever. Before we continue, let us know where you are watching from in the world in the comments. We love seeing how far our stories travel. And if this story touches your heart, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. The events of the previous night played out like a noir film in Leo's mind as he stood in the silent boardroom. It had started outside a luxurious hotel where the city lights shimmered against the dark sky. Leo had been leaning against the polished black sedan, waiting for his boss. Suddenly, the revolving doors spun open. A wealthy business partner, a man with a predatory smile and greasy hands, stumbled out. He was practically dragging Serena. Her head was lolling on his shoulder, her eyes unfocused and glazed over. It was clear she had been drugged, not just intoxicated. "I will take her to my penthouse," the man sneered at Leo, his grip tightening on Serena's waist. "She needs to rest." Leo did not hesitate. He stepped forward, his jaw set like granite. He gently but firmly pried the man's hands off Serena. "Ms. Serena is going home, sir," Leo said, his voice deep and final. He scooped his boss up into his arms as if she were made of porcelain and placed her safely into the back seat of the car, leaving the angry billionaire cursing on the sidewalk. But the real test came during the drive. In the dim light of the back seat, the alcohol and whatever drug had been slipped into her drink took full effect. Serena began to burn with a feverish heat. She loosened her silk scarf and unbuttoned her blazer. She reached out, grabbing Leo's shoulder through the partition gap. "Leo," she whispered, her voice husky and desperate. "I am so lonely. Come back here. Hold me." She pulled at his collar, her fingers trembling. "I can give you anything you want. Money, power. Just love me tonight." It was the ultimate temptation. Leo was a struggling single father drowning in medical debt. One night with her could change his financial reality. Any other man might have seen this as a golden opportunity to take advantage of a vulnerable, wealthy woman. Leo clenched the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. He pulled the car over to the side of the road. He turned around, his eyes filled not with lust, but with profound pity and respect. "You do not know what you are saying, ma'am," Leo said softly. He took off his own suit jacket and covered her exposed shoulders, tucking her in like a child. He ran into a convenience store and bought a bottle of cold water, pressing it gently against her flushed forehead to cool her down. He waited until her breathing steadied and she fell into a restless sleep. When they arrived at her high-security penthouse, she was too out of it to remember the entry code. Leo had no choice. He could not leave her in the car, and he would not leave her at a hotel. He drove to the other side of town, to a neighborhood where streetlights flickered, and the buildings were old and worn. He carried the billionaire CEO up 3 flights of narrow stairs to his tiny one-bedroom apartment. Inside, the air smelled of lavender and poverty. Leo laid Serena down on the only bed in the house, right next to his sleeping daughter, Lily. He took off Serena's high heels and covered her with a frayed but clean quilt. Then, Leo took a thin blanket for himself. He lay down on the hard, cold wooden floor at the foot of the bed. He watched over the 2 women, one his world, the other his boss, like a silent guardian dog, shivering through the long, cold night so they could be warm and safe. Sunlight crept through the thin, torn curtains of the small apartment, illuminating the dancing dust motes in the air. Serena stirred, her head throbbing with a dull, heavy rhythm, the aftermath of the drugged cocktail and the alcohol. She blinked her eyes open, expecting to see the high, white ceilings of her penthouse or the unfamiliar decor of a hotel room. Instead, she saw peeling paint and a water stain on the ceiling that looked like a map of a forgotten country. Panic surged through her chest like an electric shock. She sat up abruptly, clutching the quilt to her chest. Where was she? She looked to her right. A small child, no older than 5, was sleeping soundly, clutching a worn-out teddy bear that was missing an eye. Serena gasped and scrambled backward, her heart hammering against her ribs. Then, she looked down at the floor. There was Leo, the driver, the man she treated like furniture. He was curled up on the hard wooden floorboards, using his own arm as a pillow. He was shivering slightly in the morning chill, having given the only 2 blankets in the house to the women on the bed. Memory flashed back in disjointed fragments. The club, the slimy hands of the partner, the heat in the car. Her own voice, begging Leo to touch her. A cold wave of dread washed over her. Did he? Did he take advantage of her state? Serena frantically looked down at herself. She was still wearing her silk blouse and pencil skirt. Her blazer was draped carefully over her shoulders. She checked the buttons of her shirt. Every single one was fastened perfectly to the top. Her belt was untouched. Her shoes were lined up neatly by the door. He had not touched her. Not even once. Serena looked back at Leo's sleeping form. In a world full of wolves disguised as gentlemen, her driver was a shepherd disguised as a servant. A profound sense of shame burned her cheeks, hotter than any fever. She could not face him, not like this, not in this poverty that she had never bothered to ask him about. She quietly slid out of the bed, her bare feet making no sound on the floor. She grabbed her purse and shoes and slipped out the door, leaving the apartment before the reality of the morning could catch up to her. Leo woke up an hour later to the sound of a garbage truck outside. He sat up, rubbing his stiff neck. He looked at the bed. It was empty. Only his daughter Lily remained, sleeping peacefully. Serena was gone. Panic seized Leo's throat. Why did she leave? Was she angry? Did she think he had kidnapped her? Or worse, did she wake up with no memory of the night before and assume the worst? He knew how the rich viewed the poor. To them, he was just a desperate man capable of anything. He quickly dressed Lily and took her to her aunt's house, his hands trembling as he tied his tie. He arrived at the company headquarters 30 minutes early, but the atmosphere in the lobby was already poisonous. Usually, Leo was invisible. Today, he was the center of attention. As he walked past the reception desk, conversation stopped. He felt the heavy, judgmental eyes of the staff boring into his back. He heard the whispers, sharp and cruel like paper cuts. "That is him," a junior executive whispered loudly near the elevator. "I heard he took her to a cheap motel." "Disgusting," another replied. "Taking advantage of the boss when she was drunk. He is definitely getting fired. Maybe even arrested." Leo kept his head down, clutching his cap in his hands. He wanted to scream the truth, but who would believe a driver over the imagination of the mob? He reached the driver's lounge, hoping to hide, but the intercom on the wall buzzed with a harsh, static sound. "Leo to the main boardroom immediately," the secretary's voice announced, cold and devoid of sympathy. "The entire board is waiting." Leo felt his stomach drop to his shoes. The entire board. This was not just a firing. This was a public execution. He thought of Lily's hospital bills, the red overdue stamps on the envelopes on his kitchen table. If he lost this job, he lost everything. He walked down the long, carpeted hallway toward the double mahogany doors. It felt like walking to the gallows. He took a deep breath, pushed the doors open, and stepped into the lion's den to face his fate. My heart is pounding so fast right now. Imagine being in Leo's shoes. He did everything right. He was a perfect gentleman who slept on a cold floor to protect her. But now he is standing there like a criminal, surrounded by people who think the worst of him. Serena looks furious. Is she really going to punish the man who saved her honor? I am terrified for him. Just watch what happens next. The echo of the word "fired" bounced off the cold glass walls of the boardroom. The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating. Leo stood alone in the center of the room, surrounded by 20 of the wealthiest people in the city. They looked at him with disdain, their eyes like lasers burning holes in his cheap, worn-out suit. They were vultures, waiting for the carcass to fall so they could pick it clean. To them, this was entertainment. The poor driver had overstepped, and now he was being crushed. Leo felt a lump form in his throat, sharp and painful. He thought of Lily. He thought of the red envelope from the hospital sitting on his kitchen counter, demanding payment for her asthma treatments. He thought of the empty refrigerator waiting for him at home. But Leo was a man of dignity. He would not beg. He would not give these people the satisfaction of seeing him cry. "I understand, ma'am," Leo said, his voice quiet but steady. He reached up and unclipped his plastic ID badge from his lapel. His hands shook slightly, betraying his heartbreak. He placed the badge gently on the polished mahogany table. It made a small, final clicking sound that felt like a gavel striking a death sentence. "Thank you for the opportunity to work here," Leo whispered. "I wish you the best." He turned his back on the billions of dollars in that room and began the long, lonely walk toward the double doors. Each step felt like walking through wet cement. He reached for the brass handle, ready to step out into a future of uncertainty and unemployment. "Stop right there!" Serena's voice rang out. It was not a shout, but a command that carried the weight of absolute authority. Leo froze. He turned around slowly, expecting another insult, expecting her to demand he return the uniform immediately. Serena was standing up. She walked around the head of the table, her high heels clicking rhythmically on the floor. She picked up the plastic ID badge Leo had left behind. She looked at it for a moment, then looked up at the board members who were snickering behind their hands. With a sudden, violent motion, Serena threw the badge into the trash can in the corner of the room. "I said you are fired immediately," Serena said, walking toward Leo until she was standing inches from him. She looked up into his confused, terrified eyes. Her expression softened, the ice melting away to reveal a raw, intense vulnerability. "I am firing you as my driver, Leo," she declared, her voice projecting to every corner of the room. "Because you simply cannot drive the car and be the husband of the CEO at the same time." The room gasped. It was a collective sound of shock, as if all the oxygen had been sucked out of the air. The smug smiles on the executives' faces vanished instantly, replaced by jaws dropping in disbelief. "Excuse me?" Leo stammered, his brain failing to process the words. "Husband?" Serena turned to face her board of directors. Her eyes blazed with fire. "You are all wondering why," she said, gesturing to Leo. "You look at him and you see a driver. You see a poor man. You see a servant." She took a step forward, addressing the room with fierce passion. "Last night I was vulnerable. I was drugged. I was not a CEO. I was just a woman who could not stand on her own 2 feet. I was in a car with this man. I was out of my mind. I begged him to touch me. I offered him everything: money, power, my body." The board members shifted uncomfortably, exchanging stunned glances. "Do you know what he did?" Serena asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "He did not take advantage of me. He did not steal from me. He took me to his home. He gave me his bed. He gave my head a pillow. And he—" Serena pointed at Leo, tears shining in her eyes. "This man slept on the cold, hard floor. He shivered all night on the wood just to make sure I was safe. He protected my honor when I could not protect it myself." She reached into the pocket of her blazer. She did not pull out a severance check. She pulled out a small, deep blue velvet box. She turned back to Leo. "I am surrounded by men in expensive suits who want to marry me for my shares," Serena whispered, looking deep into his soul. "I am surrounded by wolves who want to tear me apart. I do not need another business partner, Leo. I need a guardian. I need a man who has more integrity in his little finger than this entire board has in their bank accounts." She opened the box. Inside sat a simple, thick band of platinum, a man's ring. "I prepared a contract," Serena said, her voice soft and pleading. but not an employment contract. It is a marriage license. Leo stood paralyzed. The world was spinning. Leo, Serena said, holding the ring out. I know this is crazy. I know we come from different worlds, but you are the only man I trust with my life. You treated me like a queen when I had nothing to offer you but trouble. Will you marry me? Will you help me raise your daughter and let me be safe with you? The room was deathly silent. Everyone was waiting for the answer. The driver who had walked in expecting to lose his livelihood was now being offered the world. Leo looked down at the shimmering ring, then up at the woman holding it. His heart was pounding against his ribs like a trapped bird. For a moment, the boardroom vanished. The sneering executives, the expensive furniture, the city skyline outside the window, it all faded into a blur. There was only Serena, her hand outstretched, offering him a lifeline he never dared to dream of. But reality crashed back in, heavy and cold. Leo took a slow, painful step back. He shook his head, his hands raising in a gesture of surrender. I cannot do this, Serena, Leo stammered, his voice thick with shame. Look at me. Please, just look at me. He gestured to his frayed cuffs and scuffed shoes. I am a driver. I live in a neighborhood where the police do not even like to patrol. I have a mountain of medical debt that I will be paying off until the day I die. I have nothing to offer a woman like you. You are a queen, and I am nobody. He swallowed hard, the lump in his throat making it hard to speak. And it is not just me, Leo continued, his voice cracking. I come as a package deal. I have a little girl, Lily. She is sick. She needs expensive treatments for her asthma. She needs a father who is around, not a stepfather who is busy running a global empire. I cannot bring my messy, broken life into your perfect world. You will regret it in a week. The executives around the room nodded subtly, agreeing with every word. Finally, they thought, the peasant knows his place. But Serena did not lower her hand. She did not pull the ring back. Instead, she took a step closer, invading his personal space, ignoring the boundaries of class and status. I know, Serena said softly. A gentle smile touched her lips, warm and genuine. I saw her this morning, Leo. Leo froze. I woke up next to her, Serena whispered. I saw the way she slept, clutching that old teddy bear. I saw the way you covered her with the only warm blanket you had. I saw the drawings on your refrigerator. Serena's eyes filled with tears again, but they were happy tears this time. I have billions of dollars, Leo. I have houses I have never slept in and cars I never drive. But do you know what I do not have? I do not have anyone to ask me how my day was. I do not have anyone to share a meal with. I come home to a cold, empty penthouse every single night. She reached out and took his rough, calloused hand in her soft, manicured ones. You say you have nothing, but you are wrong. You have the one thing I cannot buy. You have a home. You have love. You have a family. She squeezed his hand tight. I do not want a trophy husband, Leo. I want a partner. And about Lily, Serena's voice trembled with hope. I have always wanted to be a mother, but I was too busy chasing money. Let me help you take care of her. Let me pay for the best doctors in the world. Let me read her bedtime stories. Let us be a family. You have the heart, and I have the means. We are two halves of the same puzzle. Leo looked into her eyes. He searched for any sign of pity or mockery, but he found only raw sincerity. She was not looking for a servant. She was looking for a sanctuary. And somehow, in his poverty, he was the only one who could give it to her. The walls Leo had built around his heart to survive the hard years began to crumble. He realized that saying no would not be noble. It would be foolish. It would be denying his daughter a future and denying this lonely woman a chance at happiness. You really mean it? Leo whispered, his voice barely audible. You would accept us, broken pieces and all. You are not broken, Leo, Serena said firmly. You are the strongest man I have ever met. Leo let out a long, shaky breath. He looked at the ring again. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Okay," Leo said, a tear escaping and rolling down his cheek. "Yes, I will marry you." A collective gasp swept through the room again. Serena beamed, a radiant smile breaking across her face that made her look younger and softer than anyone had ever seen. She did not wait. Right there, in front of the board of directors, she slid the heavy platinum band onto Leo's finger. It fit perfectly. "You are not my driver anymore," Serena declared, holding his hand up for everyone to see. "Gentlemen, meet my fiancé, and treat him with respect, or you will answer to me." Leo stood tall, his hand in hers. For the first time in his life, he did not feel like a shadow. He felt like a man who had finally come home. 3 months later, the garden behind Serena's estate was transformed into a paradise of white roses and golden sunlight. It was not a media spectacle with paparazzi helicopters buzzing overhead. It was intimate, quiet, and filled with genuine warmth. Leo stood at the altar, waiting. He was no longer the trembling driver in a scuffed uniform. He stood tall in a tailored tuxedo that fit his broad shoulders perfectly. But more importantly, the look in his eyes had changed. The shadow of constant worry, the fear of the next bill, the weight of poverty, it was all gone. In its place was a calm, steady confidence. He was a man who knew he was respected, not for his bank account, but for his character. The music swelled, and the guests turned. Walking down the aisle first was little Lily. She looked like a princess in a silk dress, tossing flower petals with pure joy. Her cheeks were rosy, and she was breathing easily, her asthma finally under control thanks to the best specialists in the country. When she reached the altar, she did not run to a nanny. She ran to Leo, who scooped her up for a quick hug. Then came Serena. She was not wearing the sharp, armor-like business suits she used to wear to intimidate her rivals. She wore a simple, elegant gown that made her look soft and approachable. As she walked toward Leo, her eyes were locked on him. She did not see a former employee. She saw the man who had saved her dignity when she was helpless. When they exchanged vows, there were no prenuptial agreements mentioned, only promises of loyalty and protection. "You gave me shelter when I was cold," Serena whispered, slipping a gold ring onto Leo's finger. "Now, let me give you a home forever." The reception that followed was filled with laughter. The same executives who had once mocked Leo now approached him with genuine deference, shaking his hand and asking for his advice on security matters. They realized that Serena had not just married a driver. She had married a man of unshakable principle. Leo looked around the garden. He saw his daughter dancing with Serena, both of them laughing as they spun in circles. He realized that his life had not changed because of luck. It had changed because of a choice. On that dark night, in the back of a luxury car, he could have chosen the easy path of exploitation. Instead, he chose the hard path of honor. He chose to sleep on a cold floor to keep a stranger safe. And because he protected her in the dark, she brought him into the light. It was proof that kindness is an investment that never fails. A good heart is the only currency that truly matters in the end. Best plot twist ever! I went from being terrified for Leo to screaming, "Yes!" at my screen. Serena is so smart. She knows that a good man is harder to find than $1 billion. Leo proved that integrity pays off in the biggest way possible. He went from sleeping on the floor to owning the castle. Would you marry your boss if they proposed like this? Let me know in the comments below. Do not forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next story.